The school was supposed to be silent at that hour, but Daniel Cross had never trusted silence, not in a building filled with hundreds of children every day. So when that faint, trembling cry drifted down the dark hallway, he didn't ignore it. He set his papers aside and followed the sound, each step echoing off the linoleum floor. The preschool wing was locked, lights off, completely empty. Yet the cry came again, so fragile, so frightened it made the hair on his arms rise. Daniel pushed open the nursery door slowly, not prepared for what he was about to see. Curled behind a low wooden shelf, barely visible in the shadows, was a young boy. The child's skin was dusty, his clothing torn, his body so thin that Daniel could see the outline of his ribs through the fabric. For a moment, Daniel forgot how to breathe. Children got scared, children got lost, but this looked like something far worse. He knelt down slowly, careful not to startle the boy, and whispered, "Hey, buddy, it's okay. I'm here to help you." The child flinched but didn't run. The boy's lips trembled as he tried to speak. Only one word escaped him. Home, soft as a breath, full of longing and confusion. Daniel felt something inside him twist. A child this young shouldn't be wandering alone, let alone starving. He reached for the emergency blanket stored in the classroom cabinet and wrapped it gently around the boy's shoulders. The child leaned into the warmth instantly, as if he hadn't felt it in days. Daniel lifted him into his arms and carried him toward the staff lounge, praying he wasn't already too late. Inside the lounge, the bright fluorescent lights revealed just how weak the child truly was. His cheeks were hollow, his eyes sunken, and his hands shook even as he tried to hold the granola bar Daniel gave him. Daniel opened the refrigerator, searching for anything soft and safe enough for a starving child. Applesauce. Yogurt. Half a sandwich. He offered them slowly, letting the boy taste small bites until his trembling eased. The child ate with tiny, careful movements, like someone who had learned not to expect food. Once the boy's breathing steadied, Daniel stepped aside and called local authorities. He explained everything, where he found the child, how weak he was, that he seemed unable to speak more than a single word. Within minutes the dispatcher responded, but something in her voice carried hesitation. After running the description through missing child reports in the region, she said quietly, "Sir, no child matching that age or background has been reported missing. Not in this county, not in the neighboring ones." Daniel stared at the phone, stunned. That made no sense. How could a child this young vanish without anyone reporting it? The officer on the line promised to send someone, but even she sounded puzzled, as though the situation didn't fit anything she'd dealt with before. Daniel hung up and returned to the boy, who was now curled up on the staff couch wearing Daniel's jacket like a protective shell. The child watched him with wide, dark eyes, tired, cautious, but trusting him in a way that broke Daniel's heart. He tried again to ask simple questions, name, age, where he lived, but the boy only whispered, "Home," and pointed weakly toward the window, toward the vast darkness of the Arizona desert. As Daniel sat beside him, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much larger than a lost child case. The desert surrounding their small Arizona town was wild and unforgiving, dotted with reservations, deep canyons, and miles of land where people could disappear without a trace. Whoever this child was, he had come from somewhere far, somewhere dangerous, and he had endured something no child should ever live through. Daniel didn't know it yet, but this single moment, this single cry in the darkness, was about to pull him into a story of survival, heritage, and mystery that would forever alter the course of his quiet life. 4 days passed, and life at the school returned to its usual rhythm, but Daniel couldn't shake the memory of the boy curled behind that shelf. The authorities had taken the child to a medical center on the edge of town, promising to alert nearby reservations and community leaders. Still, every night Daniel found himself wondering if the boy was warm, if he was eating well, if he had finally spoken more than that single word, home. On the 4th morning, as he was locking his front door to leave for school, he heard soft footsteps on his porch. When he opened the door, 3 Apache women stood before him, wrapped in woven shawls whose colors told stories older than the town itself. Their faces were lined with exhaustion, their eyes red from days without rest. For a long moment, none of them spoke, and Daniel felt his heart race. Then the eldest woman stepped forward, her voice quiet but steady. She placed a hand over her chest and said, "Our child, you kept him alive." The words hit Daniel with unexpected force, filling him with relief and disbelief. They introduced themselves as relatives of the little boy, mothers, aunts, guardians all woven into one family unit. Their voices trembled as they explained what had happened. A powerful storm had swept across the White Mountain Apache Reservation, scattering families in its chaos. Flash floods turned dry paths into dangerous routes, and in the frantic search for safety, the child had become separated. They'd searched through canyons, shelters, clinics, and neighboring towns, begging for any glimpse or trace of him. Every hour that passed had felt like another piece of hope slipping away. One of the women said they had almost given up until the reservation hotline received a vague message about a found child with Apache features. They traveled through the night, hearts pounding, unsure if they were about to face relief or heartbreak. When they arrived at the clinic, they found him, wrapped in a blanket, asleep, safe. The moment one of them touched his hair, he had whispered, "Home, again," and they had all broken into tears. Daniel listened, stunned that the child he found had survived a journey across miles of unforgiving land. Then the youngest woman, barely older than Daniel's oldest students, stepped closer. Her hands shook as she reached out and held his. Her touch was warm, grateful, trembling with emotion she could no longer hide. "You showed kindness when the world didn't," she said softly. "For us, that means family." The words struck Daniel so deeply he didn't know how to respond. He had only done what anyone should do. Yet, standing there with these women, he realized that simple choices sometimes carried weight far beyond what one could see. They told him the boy remembered Daniel's face. He remembered the warmth of the blanket, the small bites of food, the gentle voice that told him he was safe. To the child, Daniel had been the first light after days trapped in darkness and fear. The women believed that kindness was more than an action, it was a connection. And in their culture, connections were sacred. They wanted to honor him, to thank him in the way their ancestors would have thanked someone who protected a member of their tribe. Daniel invited them inside, offering coffee and a place to rest. They walked around his living room softly, their shawls brushing against the furniture, bringing a sense of old-world grace into the modern space. As they talked, he learned pieces of their traditions, their values, their fears from those difficult days. They spoke about the dangers the boy had faced, the cold nights, the predators in the wild, the dehydration that could have ended his life. Every detail made Daniel realize just how miraculous it was that he heard that cry in time. By the time they prepared to leave, the morning sun had risen high enough to spill gold across the porch. The eldest woman placed a beaded pouch in Daniel's hand, an old family piece, passed down through generations. "To remind you," she said, "that even small acts change lives." As the three women walked away, Daniel stood silently, the desert wind brushing against the shawl threads still clinging to the air. What he had believed was a simple school hallway mystery had unfolded into something far deeper. A story of heritage, survival, and bonds he never expected to form. And though he didn't know it yet, his life would never return to the quiet simplicity it once had.